After suffering a humiliating defeat in Parliament, UK Prime Minister Theresa May faced a heated defeat as lawmakers began debating the no-confidence motion moved against her by the opposition Labour Party. In embattled Theresa May, who is facing hostilities from both the opposition and her own party, defended her Brexit deal, which stands rejected by lawmakers. She said that a no deal would mean disrespecting people's mandate on the Brexit deal.
That he cannot ignore the fact that in the 2016 referendum, the people of this country voted to leave the European Union. And I believe that it is a duty, not just of government, but of Parliament, to ensure that we deliver on that. We will be speaking to parliamentarians in my own party, the DUP, across the House, about finding a way that secures the support of the House for the way forward. But I say to the honourable gentleman once again, a vote was taken in 2016, and I believe it is incumbent on this Parliament to deliver on that vote.
The leader of opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, hit out at Theresa May, saying that she should provide an alternative to a no deal instead of being in denial mode.
Can't you understand? Yesterday the House rejected her deal. She needs to come up with something different than that. But, Mr. Speaker, it's not just on Brexit that this government is failing.
As the debate escalated, Corbyn was quick to take a jibe at Theresa May's historic defeat in Parliament. He said that any Prime Minister would have resigned after such a humiliating vote.
This government has failed our country. It cannot govern, cannot command the support of most people facing the most important issue at the moment, which is Brexit. They failed again and lost the vote last night. Isn't it the case, Mr. Speaker, that with every other previous Prime Minister faced with a scale of defeat last night, they would have resigned and the country would be able to choose the government that they want?
Now, it comes a day after Theresa May's Brexit deal was overwhelmingly rejected by the Parliament. The House of Commons voted 432 to 202 against the divorce deal. Many of May's own party members voted against her deal. With less than 2 months to go for the 29th of March, which is the deadline for UK to withdraw from EU, the UK faces its deepest political crisis in almost half a century. The country has to figure out how or even whether it should exit the European Union in the first place. It is the worst parliamentary defeat for a sitting government ever in the UK, and now Theresa May's own position as Prime Minister is in peril. So what is next for the UK? Possible scenarios for the UK include an attempted but probably doomed renegotiation with the European Union. The other options include extending the Article 50 process, and if Theresa May loses the trust vote, it might result in the collapse of the Conservative government and may bring in a new Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the Remain protesters are also demanding a second Brexit referendum.
202.
And Wion's very own Mandy Clark had this to add a while ago.
That's her biggest problem. She certainly knows what the Parliament doesn't want. They didn't want her deal. They hated the backstop. They made that abundantly clear last night. But they haven't explained what deal they would agree. And she'll need cross-party support. She'll need Labour to say what deal would suit them. She needs her own Conservative Party to say what deal would suit them. So she can go to the European Union and say, this, if I could guarantee X, Y, and Z in a deal, then I can get it passed through Parliament. Right now, the difficulty she faces, she could renegotiate another deal, but could still be passed through Parliament if it isn't clear and if she doesn't have that cross-party support of exactly what they want in that deal. So she has a very difficult road ahead to try and get another deal. The only other two options is delay Brexit, which she is loath to do. She said over 70 times in Parliament that she will not delay it. Or it's the no-deal scenario where they crash out of the EU without a deal, and that will damage Britain's economy enormously.
Now, there's been a lot of debate and buzz in the UK around Article 50 of the European law. So what exactly is this law? Now, Article 50 is a plan for any country that wishes to exit the European Union. It was created as part of the Treaty of Lisbon, an agreement signed by all EU states. The law came into effect in the year 2009, before which there was no formal mechanism for a country to leave the bloc. Now, the article mandates that any member state wanting to quit the European Union must notify the European Council and negotiate its withdrawal. The time frame allowed in Article 50 is 2 years. Now, Theresa May had signed a letter that formally began the process of Brexit in March 2017. She has time until the 29th of March this year to reach an exit deal with the EU. But following the crushing defeat of a Brexit bill on Tuesday, there is talk that the Theresa May government might have to seek an extension. Now, an extension can only be provided by a unanimous agreement among all EU countries. The Brexit crisis has brought the UK back to square one. Now, some people feel that only a second referendum reversing the Brexit will save them from continuing uncertainty.
I think, yeah, the second referendum, definitely. I think that's the way to do it. People should decide. In 2016, we didn't know about all those problems. And now we are aware of this, so we should make another final decision as to stay or leave.
I don't think a general election would be a very good idea for us at the moment, but I also don't think that we can continue as we currently are with no real alternatives. And so probably the best thing to do is throw everything away and start again.
To say, I hope that Theresa May carries on in her position. I think she's the person to sort it out. It's all very well criticising her, but I think who would do better? I don't think Jeremy Corbyn would do for certain.
Now, a whole host of leaders have reacted to the historic defeat, beginning with the man who started it all, David Cameron. The former UK Prime Minister held the referendum that began the Brexit process. He resigned soon after UK voted to leave the EU, and Theresa May inherited the Brexit burden. Now, Cameron says that he is hopeful that Theresa May will survive the no-confidence vote tonight.
She wins her vote tonight, I'm sure she will, and as I said, I hope then that Parliament can come together and find an alternative partnership agreement with the European Union. That's the right way forward. That's what her deal was about last night, and she has my support as she does this.
Do you regret calling the referendum?
I don't regret calling the referendum. It was a promise I made 2 years before the 2015 general election. It was included in a manifesto. It was legislated for in Parliament. I think 6 out of 7 members of Parliament of all parties voted for that referendum. Obviously, I regret that we lost that referendum. I deeply regret that. I was leading the campaign to stay in the European Union. And obviously, I regret the difficulties and the problems that we've been having trying to implement the result of that referendum. But I don't think it's going to be helped by me giving a running commentary. I support the Prime Minister. I support her aim to have a partnership deal with Europe. That's what needs to be put in place. That's what Parliament needs to try and deliver now. And she has my support as she tries to do that.
Now, the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said that Theresa May should suspend the Brexit process. She says that Theresa May must hold a second referendum.
Well, this is a defeat of literally historic proportions for the Prime Minister, and she has seen it coming for months and has just wasted time. We can't waste time any longer. First of all, I believe now is the time to stop the Article 50 clop, to take away any risk of the UK crashing out of the EU without a deal on the 29th of March. And secondly, legislation should be brought forward to take this issue back to the electorate. Parliament has had 2.5 years, and the government and Parliament has failed to deliver a coherent, workable Brexit deal. It's time to put this back to the people in another referendum.
The President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, tweeted, and I quote, "If a deal is impossible and no one wants no deal, then who will finally have the courage to say what the only positive solution is?" Unquote. And the chief Brexit negotiator of the European Union too echoed a similar sentiment. Michel Barnier said that the bloc is determined to reach a deal, but Theresa May must make her intentions very clear.
Now it's time for the UK to tell us the next steps. And on our side, we will remain united and determined to reach a deal.
Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has warned that a no-deal scenario would lead to instability in Northern Ireland.
The onus is on Westminster to come up with solutions that they can support, but they must be solutions that the European Union and Ireland can accept.
In France, President Emmanuel Macron said that UK would be the first loser if it left the EU without a deal. Macron said that he expects UK to eventually ask for more time to renegotiate the deal.
Je vais vous dire comment je vois les choses. Première option, ils vont vers le no deal. Donc ils disent il n'y a pas d'accord. Ça fait peur à tout le monde. Les premiers perdants de ça, ce sont les Britanniques. Donc dans ce contexte-là, ils vont devoir, sans qu'il y ait de période de transition, de toute façon renégocier une relation future. Je peux vous dire là très solennellement, parce que je l'ai toujours fait, que dans le cadre de cette relation future, les intérêts de la pêche seront défendus.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel says that she is waiting for the UK Prime Minister's next move before German Parliament can come up with a solution.
Ich bedauere sehr, dass gestern Abend das britische Unterhaus dem Abkommen zum Austritt Großbritanniens eine Absage erteilt hat. Wir glauben, dass es jetzt an der britischen Seite ist, und die Premierministerin hat das ja auch angekündigt, uns zu sagen, wie es weitergeht. Wir wollen den Schaden, und es wird in jedem Fall einen Schaden geben durch den Austritt Großbritanniens, so klein wie möglich halten. Deshalb werden wir natürlich versuchen, eine geordnete Lösung weiter zu finden. Aber wir sind auch vorbereitet, dass es eine solche geordnete Lösung nicht gibt. Deshalb werden wir morgen im Deutschen Bundestag ja auch die Beratungen haben zu den von der Bundesregierung vorgelegten Gesetzen, die dann gelten würden, wenn es kein Abkommen mit Großbritannien über den Austritt gibt. Wir haben noch Zeit zu verhandeln, aber wir warten jetzt auf das, was die britische Premierministerin auch vorschlägt.
So what is next for the UK and what will be Theresa May's next move? Take a look.
All eyes are now on today's no-confidence motion. If May survives the no-confidence motion, then she will present Parliament with a modified Brexit plan on Monday. However, there is no guarantee that Parliament will accept any new deal from May. If a new version of the deal too is rejected, then Britain will be up for a no-deal Brexit. Now, if May loses the no-confidence motion, then she will have to quit and pay way to the formation of an alternative government. In case there is no clear alternative government, then the Speaker would have to see whether any side can win a no-confidence vote within 14 days. If a side manages to prove its majority, then it will perhaps continue with Brexit with some changes to the deal. If no government is able to prove its majority within 14 days, then Britain will head to general elections.
And what happens to your travel plans if the UK crashes out of the European Union without a deal? Now, experts say that it is almost impossible to plan effectively if you are heading in or out of the UK. Now, tourism to and from the UK is worth billions of dollars, and millions of workers depend on summer holiday makers. A major part of British life is dependent on the European Union laws, including airport management. Now that Prime Minister Theresa May's deal has been rejected, it is likely that the UK may not be able to strike a deal with the EU at all. Remember, the UK is set to leave the EU on the 29th of March this year. Now, travellers must note that currency, aviation, insurance, passport control and even the cell phone usage will be affected. There are concerns that a no deal would result in long queues at passport control, as passengers from the UK could be treated as those from a third country. Now, the European Union has assured that UK citizens will not need passports, at least in the initial period, but visitors from UK could end up paying £7 by 2021 for the European Travel Information and Authorization Scheme. Some believe that airfares are likely to rise if the UK and the EU fail to strike a deal. Some carriers from Europe have set up subsidiaries in the UK, while UK airlines have set up bases in Europe to ensure smooth functioning in case of a no deal. There are also concerns about the cost of cell phone usage when travelling in the European Union. Roaming charges could be back if the UK exits EU without a deal.